My name is Malik, and today I will be your narrator exclusively for Red Beret. Let me tell you a story that begins with a mystery, a story about a photo, a family secret, and a truth that will change everything. Imagine this. You've always been told that a certain photo was of someone else, someone from your past, but as time goes by, something doesn't quite add up. It haunts you. You can feel it in your gut, but you're not sure what the truth really is. For years, Ibrahim had been staring at that picture. It was a photo of a small boy, no older than 6, standing in a simple sunlit room. His smile was shy but hopeful. He had never paid much attention to it, until one day the truth hit him like a bolt of lightning. The little boy in the photo was, in fact, him. The realization sent a chill down his spine. How could this be? How could the boy in the photo be himself? And why had his family kept it a secret for so long? Before I dive deeper, let me tell you a little about Ibrahim's family. Ibrahim grew up in a loving household, surrounded by warmth and support. His parents were hardworking, always striving to provide him with the best life they could. But like many families, they had their secrets. Secrets that Ibrahim only began to uncover as he got older. His father, a man who worked tirelessly to give his family a future, was also a man who never spoke about his past. Ibrahim often wondered about his father's early years, the life he led before becoming the man who was always there for him. His mother, on the other hand, was loving, gentle, and protective. But there was always something she held back, a quiet sadness in her eyes when she looked at Ibrahim, as if she was holding on to a memory that she couldn't share. Growing up, Ibrahim didn't think much of these unspoken things. But as he approached adulthood, he began to realize that there was a history in his family that he knew little about. His mother would often avoid questions about his early years, and his father, when asked about his own childhood, would quickly change the subject. There was a wall between Ibrahim and the past, a wall that was starting to feel like it was meant to keep him in the dark. Little did he know, the photo was the key to everything. Ibrahim sat quietly, the old photograph gripped in his hands. He had been staring at it for what felt like hours, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. The small boy in the picture, how was that even possible? His fingers traced the edges of the worn photo, the paper crinkling slightly under his touch. The boy's smile was so innocent, so pure. He had the same eyes, the same features. There was no mistaking it. He was looking at himself as a child. But the background, the place, the people around him, they were strangers. The home was small, different from the one he remembered growing up in. He had never seen the inside of that house before, never seen the faces of those people in the photo. But there he was, standing in the middle of it all, looking so familiar and yet so foreign. Ibrahim's heart pounded in his chest. How could he not have known about this? How could his mother have never mentioned it? He couldn't understand why this photo had never come up before. It was a part of his past, his childhood, yet it felt like it belonged to someone else. He had been raised to believe his family history was simple, straightforward. But now, everything was shrouded in confusion and uncertainty. The more he stared at the photo, the more questions flooded his mind. Was this a part of his life that his mother had kept hidden from him? Had she kept secrets all these years? His thoughts raced. What did this mean for him? For his identity? For the life he thought he knew? The boy in the photo was him, and yet he was looking at someone he didn't recognize. Ibrahim felt a surge of emotion, anger, sadness, frustration. He had always thought that everything about his life was clear, that the path he walked was set. But now, in this single moment, everything was uncertain. He felt betrayed, not by his mother, but by the secrets that had been kept from him. He wanted answers. He needed to understand why this part of his past had been hidden away. He had to know the truth. His mother had never told him about this photo, never mentioned the life he had lived before he could remember. What was so important about this moment, this piece of his history, that she had chosen to keep it from him? Ibrahim's hands shook as he placed the photo down on the table. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of something monumental, something that would change everything he knew about himself. He needed to speak to his mother. He needed to understand why she had kept this secret. Ibrahim stood up, his legs feeling unsteady beneath him. His heart raced as he walked towards the living room where his mother sat. She was in her usual spot, a quiet figure, always looking out the window as if lost in thought. Ibrahim had always seen her as a strong woman, someone who had all the answers. But now, with this new revelation, he felt like he was standing in front of a stranger. As he approached her, his voice caught in his throat. He didn't know where to begin. How could he ask her about something so deeply personal, so painful? He finally found the words. "Mom, there's a photo I found," he said, his voice shaking. "It's of me, but it's not from the house I remember. It's a different place, different people. Why did you never tell me about this?" His mother looked at him, her eyes soft and sad. She didn't answer immediately, and in that silence, Ibrahim felt a chill run down his spine. What was she hiding? Why couldn't she just tell him the truth? Finally she spoke, her voice quiet, almost a whisper. "I never wanted you to know about that time," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "It was a part of your past that I thought would be too much for you to bear. I kept it hidden, thinking it would be better for you." Ibrahim's mind raced as his mother's words sank in. He couldn't believe it. His whole life, he had believed that everything about his family was straightforward, but now he was learning that his past was filled with layers of secrets and unspoken truths. "But why?" Ibrahim asked, his voice breaking. "Why keep this from me? I have a right to know my own story." His mother's eyes were filled with pain as she looked at him. "I didn't want you to have to carry the burden of our past," she said, her voice trembling. "You were just a child, and I didn't want you to carry the weight of everything that happened before you were born. I thought you would be better off not knowing." Ibrahim stood there in shock, his mind reeling. His mother had carried the weight of her past alone, never sharing it with him. She had made decisions for him, trying to protect him from the pain she had experienced. But in doing so, she had created a barrier between them, one that Ibrahim now had to confront. He looked at her, his heart heavy with the realization that the woman he had always known as strong and unshakable had been hiding this burden all along. "I need to know everything," he said, his voice firm now. "I need to understand the truth." His mother nodded slowly, the tears now falling freely from her eyes. She knew that it was time for Ibrahim to understand the past, the hidden truths that had shaped their family. She took a deep breath and began to tell him the story that had been buried for so long. She spoke of the difficult years before Ibrahim was born, of the people in the photo, and of the sacrifices she had made to keep him safe from a past that could have destroyed him. As Ibrahim listened, the pieces of his life began to fall into place. The truth was painful, but it was also liberating. He now understood why his mother had kept so much from him. She had done it out of love, out of a desire to protect him from the struggles and pain she had faced. Ibrahim realized that the secrets of his past didn't define him. They only made him stronger. Ibrahim sat there, the weight of the truth heavy in his chest. His mother's words echoed in his mind, each sentence like a wave crashing over him. He could hardly process everything she had said, about the life she had hidden from him, the secrets she had kept to protect him. It felt as though the ground beneath him was slipping away. He had always thought he knew who he was, where he came from, but now everything was in question. The photo, the family history, the very foundation of his life. Nothing seemed certain anymore. He had always believed that his family had nothing but love and honesty to offer, but now he understood that love had come at a cost. It had been built on sacrifices, on things left unsaid, on a past that had been buried so deep that even he hadn't known about it. Ibrahim's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but the one thing that stood out above all was the pain. The pain of not knowing, the pain of being kept in the dark for so long. His mother had tried to protect him, but in doing so, she had unknowingly put a barrier between them. He had always felt close to her, trusted her completely, but now he couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal. Why had she kept this from him? Was it really for his own good, or was it something more? He stood up from the chair, pacing the room as he tried to make sense of everything. The walls seemed to close in on him, and he felt suffocated by the weight of his emotions. He had so many questions, and yet he didn't even know where to begin. He had spent his whole life believing in a lie, in a version of his family's history that had been carefully crafted for him. And now the truth had shattered it all. The man he had called father for all these years, was he really his father? And if not, who was? The question lingered in his mind, but there were no answers, only more confusion. As he continued to pace, he found himself thinking about the man in the photo. Who was he? Why had he been a part of his mother's life? And why hadn't she ever told him about him? Ibrahim's thoughts turned to his biological father. Was he someone Ibrahim could find? Was he someone he even wanted to find? The pain of the unknown gnawed at him. He had always felt a sense of connection to his family, but now it felt like that connection was unraveling. His mother had raised him, loved him, and given him everything she could, but she had also hidden the truth from him. He couldn't help but wonder if she had been afraid. Afraid of what might happen if Ibrahim learned the truth. Afraid of how he might see her, or worse, how he might see himself. The emotional weight of the situation began to feel too much for him. He sat back down, his head in his hands, feeling a wave of frustration and sadness wash over him. He had always prided himself on being strong, on having the resilience to face any challenge. But this was different. This was a truth so deep, so personal, that it felt like it was tearing him apart from the inside. Ibrahim wiped his face, his hands trembling. He wanted to scream, to let out all the anger and confusion he felt, but he couldn't. His emotions were a tangled mess, and he didn't know how to untangle them. He had always believed that family was everything, that blood wasn't what made you family, but love and loyalty did. But now he wasn't sure. His entire perception of family, of what it meant to belong, was being called into question. He had been raised to believe that family was defined by the people who cared for you, not by biology. But now the truth was forcing him to reconsider everything. The anger he felt towards his mother was mixed with guilt. She had kept this secret for so long, and in doing so had kept him from the full truth of his own life. But she had done it out of love, hadn't she? She had done it to protect him from pain, from a past that she had hoped he would never have to confront. But the more Ibrahim thought about it, the more he realized that he needed to confront the past. He needed to understand the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. He couldn't move forward until he did. Ibrahim took a deep breath and stood up again. His decision was made. He was going to find out the rest of the story. He would confront his mother, ask her more about the man in the photo, and learn everything she had kept hidden. It wasn't going to be easy. In fact, he had no idea what he would find, or if he even wanted to find it. But one thing was certain. He had to know the truth. Ibrahim walked out of the room, determined to get the answers he needed. He didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in his life, he understood that the only way forward was to face the past. He would uncover the secrets, no matter how painful, because that was the only way he could truly move on. Ibrahim felt like he was standing at the edge of a vast, unknown abyss. The weight of the truth was overwhelming, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead consumed his thoughts. He had made up his mind. He had to know the full story, no matter how painful it might be. His mother's refusal to tell him everything left a gap that was now too large to ignore. He needed answers, and he was willing to go to any length to get them. The first step was to confront his mother once more. He needed to ask the questions that had been burning inside him since the moment he found the photograph. But before that, Ibrahim had to gather himself. The emotional turmoil from the past few days had left him exhausted, but he knew he couldn't afford to delay. His entire sense of self was at stake. As he walked through the streets of the city, his mind raced with thoughts of the past. The boy in the photograph. Who was he, really? And the man who had raised him, the man he had always called father, was he even his biological father? Ibrahim couldn't help but wonder about the impact of all this on his identity. Who was he really? Was his life built on a foundation of lies? The search for the truth wasn't just about finding his biological father, it was about reclaiming his own identity. Ibrahim arrived at his mother's house, his steps hesitant. The house, the one he had grown up in, felt different now. It felt like a place where a secret was buried, and he was about to uncover it. His mother opened the door and smiled at him, but Ibrahim could see the hesitation in her eyes. She knew why he was there, and she had been dreading this moment. She invited him in, but the air between them was thick with unspoken words. Ibrahim took a deep breath and spoke, his voice firm but filled with emotion. "Mom, I need to know the truth. You told me that the man in the photo isn't my real father, but I don't understand. Why did you keep this from me for so long? What happened?" His mother looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. She had always been a strong woman, but now her vulnerability was exposed. She had carried the burden of this secret for so many years, and now it was finally coming to light. "Ibrahim," she began, her voice trembling, "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought keeping this from you would be better. I thought you wouldn't be able to handle it." Ibrahim's heart sank. He had always known his mother to be loving and protective, but hearing her words, he realized how much pain she had carried alone. She had kept him in the dark, but it wasn't because she wanted to deceive him. She had done it to shield him from a past that she believed would only cause him suffering. His mother told him more about the man in the photograph. His biological father had been a part of her life, but things had gone terribly wrong. She had fallen in love with him, but the relationship had been tumultuous. He was not a stable man. He had been involved in a life of crime, and their relationship had caused her nothing but heartbreak. She had wanted to protect Ibrahim from all of that, from the pain and the danger that had followed her during those years. When she had gotten pregnant with Ibrahim, she had made the decision to leave the man and start over. She had married the man Ibrahim had known as his father, a man who had been kind to her and provided for her. But she never told Ibrahim the truth. She kept the past buried, hoping that he would never have to know. "I didn't want you to grow up with that man in your life," his mother said softly. "I didn't want you to be exposed to the chaos he brought into our lives. So I did what I thought was best for you. I chose to raise you with someone who could give you stability and love. But I never stopped thinking about the man you were supposed to know. The man who gave you life." Ibrahim listened in silence, his emotions swirling. He understood now why his mother had made the choices she had, but that didn't make it any easier to accept. He had always believed in the love and stability of his family, and now everything felt different. The foundation of his life had been built on half-truths, and the realization was both heartbreaking and freeing. But there was still more to uncover. Ibrahim needed to know more about the man who had been his biological father. He needed to understand who he was and why he had disappeared from his life. His mother had given him the pieces of the story, but Ibrahim knew he couldn't stop there. He had to seek out the truth for himself. He decided that he would find his biological father, no matter where it took him. It was a daunting task, one that would require courage and determination. But Ibrahim knew he had to do it. The search for the truth was not just about understanding the man who had been his father. It was about understanding himself. Who was he really? What did it mean to be his mother's son? He couldn't live the rest of his life with these questions hanging over him. Ibrahim left his mother's house that day with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was unclear, but he was determined to walk it. He didn't know where his search would lead, but one thing was certain. He was ready to face whatever came next. The truth was waiting, and Ibrahim was going to find it, no matter the cost. With the truth finally out, Ibrahim found himself standing at a crossroads. He had always thought he knew his family, his identity, and his past. But now he realized that knowing the truth was more important than anything he could have imagined. The discovery of his past didn't change who he was. It simply gave him the full picture. Ibrahim understood that family isn't just about the memories we carry. It's also about the truths we choose to face. He thanked his mother for everything she had done for him, for the sacrifices she had made, and for the love she had given him. And as Ibrahim stood there, ready to embrace the new understanding of his past, he knew that the future held endless possibilities. This is Malik, and I've shared this incredible journey with you today, exclusively for Red Beret. Thank you for watching, and may your own journey be full of truth, love, and discovery.